Very few gaming franchises are as up in the air as the Mass Effect series. With 3 outstanding games that defined the genres of their time, the series had carved out its own identity as one of the superior strings of sci-fi video games of all time. Unfortunately, this has been marred somewhat by a massive letdown of a sequel in Mass Effect Andromeda, and with that, the reputation of developer Bioware also hangs by a thread, since their latest game, Anthem, also tanked critically and commercially. Needless to say, fans of the series and of Bioware are more than worried about the beloved sci-fi action RPG series, assuming they haven't already given up on it entirely. However, as one might expect, Bioware is reportedly working on the next official Mass Effect game with director Mike Gamble, who has worked on the series since Mass Effect 2 behind the wheel. The report comes from Kotaku's Jason Schreir, who briefly confirms the game's existence in a fairly recent piece that was primarily about the upcoming Anthem overhaul. To many, that particular piece of news might be even more interesting than the Anthem overhaul itself, as there's potentially a lot we can extrapolate from that hasty admission. Firstly, before anybody heads out to get their pre-orders in, the most obvious thing we can expect from a 5th Mass Effect game is a rather long period of waiting. Odds are the immediate timeline of releases for Bioware does not include Mass Effect for another several years. With the Anthem overhaul and the next Dragon Age on its way, it's more likely that the 5th Mass Effect game is much further down the horizon than we may like it to be. At best, I wouldn't expect Mass Effect to hit storefronts until the middle, if not the end, of the next console generation. If Dragon Age goes well and Anthem gets the plethora of improvements and fixes that it needs, not only will those initial releases take up the next couple of years, but all of their subsequent DLC packs and updates will continue to take up manpower and resources from Bioware, and that's assuming that the games go well and Bioware doesn't suffer any more layoffs. Bioware is owned by EA after all. Once we get to that era where the next Mass Effect game takes center stage and Bioware is able to allocate the majority of the studio's resources to working on it, we will undoubtedly start to see and hear more about it. Of the many elements that will be making up the game, the first things we will probably start to notice are the graphics and general presentation. Since this game will be made for next generation platforms, which will be well established by that time, expect some truly massive landscapes, 4K texture details that may even scale up to 8K, and an overall outstanding package in the graphics department. Say what you want about Anthem and Andromeda, despite their problems, they do have some beautiful design work and visual effects put together by some of the most talented artists in the entire industry. So as they get their arms around the capabilities of next-gen platforms, it would make logical sense to assume that the landscapes, character models, and interior locations of the next Mass Effect game will be downright gorgeous in their presentation, and possibly some of the best of the next generation. On top of the visual elements of game design, Bioware does know how to build a world. While Anthem and Andromeda have struggled to be on the same level as some of Bioware's older games in this department, still, many of the same writers and producers from the past are still involved in the company, albeit in different roles. While it's also true that some key figures who were instrumental in Bioware's past success have moved on, with Mike Gamble moving up to director of the new Mass Effect game, it's possible that this mentality might be in use for other roles as well. Lower and mid-level artists and producers moving up into more pivotal roles for major projects is part of the life cycle of a healthy development studio. It's a process that you also see in other large developer studios like Rockstar, Naughty Dog, and others that go on to deliver reliably wonderful gaming experiences with every release. Assuming that this is happening over at Bioware, we can probably expect a good story worthy of the franchise, more so than Andromeda. The lessons being learned with Anthem right now and the lessons that will inevitably be learned with the creation of the next Dragon Age game will also play a role in the next Mass Effect. Expect very well realized characters, a believable world, and a wide array of possibilities that this series is so well known for. It would be pretty shocking for the next Mass Effect to have anything less, and surely the folks over at Bioware and EA are aware of this and will want to aim high this time around. On top of wanting to complete their own redemption arc as a developer, they will also have the added pressure of redeeming the Mass Effect series for the legions of fans that they've created over the years. With the objective failure of Andromeda to meet the expectations of fans in several ways, Mass Effect is likely on the chopping block in the eyes of EA, so if they aren't able to pull it off this time around, it could be their last chance. If that doesn't put a fire under Bioware to produce an outstanding game, nothing will. But with the resources available to them under EA, they should have everything they need to get it done and pull a remarkable story together that might not eclipse the original trilogy, but could at least stand among them as a relative equal. There's plenty of other areas that could be speculated on, but one thing that really jumps out to me as an obvious idea is some sort of callback or reference to the original 3 games. Bioware has previously made it pretty clear that they would largely prefer to leave the story of the original 3 games alone for the future and just build on a larger universe with other contained stories. But now, with Mass Effect being in the spot that it's in, where it needs to earn trust back from longtime fans, I wouldn't be surprised one bit if we saw some sort of tie-in with the original trilogy. Messing with the lore of the original 3 games is likely off limits in any fundamental way, but as many franchises have shown us, a great way to regain steam that has been lost is to bring in some sort of cameo of an original character in a way that doesn't conflict with older titles, but still evokes the same feelings that they did. While it's very safe to assume the next Mass Effect game will have its own story that stands apart from the original 3 games, and likely even further apart from Andromeda, I think an appearance from one or more familiar faces like Ashley Williams, Garrus, or Shepard him or herself would go a long way to achieving that, and it wouldn't be a bad idea to have that happen if it can be handled with the delicacy that it requires and deserves. Unfortunately, we are left to complete speculation at this stage with the next Mass Effect game. There are plenty of reasonable deductions we can make, but for now, it's probably best to leave it at that until we can learn more. For now, though, we should probably just focus on hoping that Bioware can make it past Anthem in the upcoming Dragon Age without getting the EA axe. If they do prevail, the future could potentially be very bright for Bioware and Mass Effect, and that's pretty doable, as there's not much of anywhere to go but up at this point. That's it for this video. If you enjoyed and would like to see more, feel free to hit that subscribe button and hit the notification bell to ensure you'll be notified when new videos go up.